Visually impaired people and the blind use various guiding techniques that help them transport themselves and move around. And like everybody else, people who are visually impaired or blind are individuals with individual needs who have different alternative strategies and make individual choices when it comes to transportation. The choice of transportation aid depends on the extent and nature of person's visual impairment, personal preferences, lighting, and the familiarity of the surroundings. A person who travels the same path every day can choose different transportation aid than when he or she moves to totally new location, for example. So some blind persons use a sighted friend, relative, or a professional as a guide, which involves holding onto someone's arm. Others use a long white cane to identify and avoid obstacles or elevation changes. And some people use a guide dog. The visually impaired persons, on the other hand, rely mostly on the vision that they have left, and that can be in the combination with auditory and tactual information and any gathered knowledge of an area to keep track of their location and to make travel easier. Some use special optical and electronic aids or IT support, but some visually impaired don't use any aids whatsoever. So many factors are being put to play in order to travel independently. And I will talk a little bit about some of them. At one time or another, most people who are visually impaired or blind will make use of a sighted guide technique, in which a person with a sight serves as a guide to a person who is visually impaired. But how do you guide a visually impaired person? What should you think about? I remember first time when I was supposed to be a sighted guide to one of my colleagues at the visually impaired organization for youth that I work for. I was very nervous and stressed, and I didn't really know what I should do, how I should do it. I remember that I tried too hard, almost. So it might be actually a tricky thing if you've never done it before. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you want to offer or you are asked to guide a blind or visually impaired person, you should. When you approach the person, start with presenting yourself and asking if a person actually needs and wants your help. If so, offer the person your elbow. However, keep in your mind that some people prefer actually to hold their arm on guide's shoulder instead. Walk slightly ahead, but not too slow and not too fast. Make sure that it's that's the guided person who decides about the speed. Give specific instructions and directions. Keep in your mind that as a sighted guide, you act as the person's eyes. So inform the person about any obstacles on your way and keep an eye to not only talk about what's under your feet, but also other surroundings. So, for example, inform about uneven surfaces, but also about, for example, potential branches that poke out. And that you are approaching narrow space or stairs or a door, for example. When approaching a narrow space, move your arm behind you so that the guided person can come behind you. And when approaching the stairs, inform always a person if the stairs go up or down. And before leaving, the person inform him or her where they are and which direction they are facing. So, as I mentioned a bit earlier as well, some people use white cane instead. And the white cane is a device used mostly by by the blind people, but not only. Some visually impaired people, persons also use them. It is quite common for our customers, for example, to be impressed to see our blind staff, how they move around and use the white cane without any problems. I remember that it was, for me, again, very personal experience when I started to work with people who are visually impaired and blind. It was very interesting and to see how people are moving around and how they can find wherever they want to go, how they orient themselves just by using the white cane. But after a while, I realized, I mean, yeah, that's not a strange thing. I mean, for the person who is blind and was born blind, I mean, that's a normal daily thing. I mean, it's as easy and as obvious as for anyone else to move around without the white cane and with the vision. So yeah, but I can understand that's why I can understand it. I mean, when someone sees a person with a white cane first time, it can be very you can be very impressed by it. The cane can be used in different ways, and the usage requires a lot of training. The most common technique is to extend the cane and swing it back and forth across the body in rhythm with the steps to provide information about the environment, such as elevation changes or obstacles. In another technique that's very often used by low vision people who still have some vision left, the cane is held diagonally across the body with the tip above the ground. And then the person employs the cane occasionally to check object or sidewalk surface when they are unsure about what they are seeing. So what do you have to think about, what you should think about in order to make it easier for the blind and visually impaired persons to use their white cane? Yeah, as you could hear, the white cane is used to help finding doors, obstacles, getting on and off public transport, etc. But in order to do that, the blind person needs something to orient him or herself towards. Most people who use a white cane, and yeah, it's mostly blind people, but not necessarily, as it was said in the movie, navigate towards walls and sidewalks. That's actually the most common. However, for the safety reasons, you have to ensure that there are different tactile surfaces so that the person can orient him or herself and know that he or she is about to go out on the street, for example. Additionally, you should always make sure that the tactile surfaces are in different colors that has a good contrast towards the surroundings. So even visually impaired people can see it. Try to use natural differences. That was in the video before mentioned as well. And that's a really good tip. Try to use actually natural differences in the surface to differentiate between the walking path and the surroundings, like gravel against grass, for example. This way, the orientation is for free. It doesn't require big changes in the environment. Doesn't bother any other user, and actually it looks nice. as well. Moreover, it's good to ensure that there are different curves and edges to navigate the path, and that there is no obstacles on the way, such as trash cans or electric scooters lying around everywhere, for example.